Hello, beautiful humans. Welcome to the revolution. I'm your host, Megan Connor, and it's been a while. It's been a while since we've done a live stream, and it's been a while since we have done a court case. Good to see you guys here tonight, and to all of you watching on the replay, welcome. I'm going to apologize in advance for background noises. My daughter is making Christmas treats in the kitchen right next door to my little podcasting area over here. So let's talk for a second about Brian Walshe. This is a case that I have not covered on this channel at all, even though it's kind of been on the radar for a lot of people since 2023. It hasn't been on my radar until just recently. And I decided to cover this case much differently than I have done with any other case that I have covered on my channel before. Normally, you know how I am. I love to do deep dives. I love to do research. And normally when I'm going to cover a case, I dig into everything from the very beginning, the charging documents, the arrest records, the police interviews. I go and I do a deep dive, and I usually do a huge recap on my channel before I decide to do anything related to the actual court case itself. But this time, holidays, other things that I was involved in, busyness, I didn't really have time to catch up on it before the actual jury selection started. And I had really good intentions of doing that over the Thanksgiving holiday here in the States, but I didn't get a chance to. So I thought, why not do this case completely differently? I'm going to approach it as if I were a juror on the case, because at this point, if I had lived in the Massachusetts area and they had called me to a jury and they had asked me what I know about this case, I would have been able to say the basics. I know that there was a mom who went missing. I know she was a real estate professional. I know her husband had potentially been charged. And that was really all I knew about it. I watched one news report just a few weeks ago about something that may have happened in prison, but I wasn't really paying attention. And so I didn't really absorb any of it. And I think I might have fallen asleep by the time the video was over. So I went into this not knowing anything. So I thought, okay, here's what I'm going to do. Rather than watching every single moment of all of the trial and all the preliminary hearings and everything that has led up to this case, I'm going to go in completely cold as if I were a juror. So when I turned on the day one recording, the video recording of this trial that's taking place in Massachusetts, I skipped to the part where the jury came in. I didn't listen to any of the preliminary arguments or anything. I just skipped to that point, and the very first thing that I heard was the judge's instructions to the jury. The charges were read, and then the opening statements began. So I'm coming to this fresh and cold, just like probably many of you are. So I don't know anything else about this case other than what I have heard from day one. I know that I'm a couple days behind, but purposely, because again, I'm going to just review the court audio and then report it to you. I'm going to do a recap as if I were a juror. Now, obviously, jurors don't get to go home and talk about the case. They're not supposed to talk about the case. But I am not going to do any other research. I'm not going to listen to anything else regarding the case. I'm not going to listen to anybody else's recaps. No hot takes from news channels, nothing like that. I was going to live stream it, but I thought, I would rather just absorb it, take my copious notes like I always do, and then come and unpack it with you here on a recap. And let's deliberate together at the end of the case and see what we think. Is he guilty or not guilty? So I think this is going to be a unique approach. And I actually like this a lot better than knowing in advance and doing all the deep dive beforehand. Because I can tell you, coming to it from this perspective, even after one day, it's very, very different than what I've done before. So that's correct, Miss Angry Seth. Please don't tell me anything if you know something, unless it was during testimony in the court case, in court, that the jury was present for. Don't tell me anything that the jury was not present for. So if I miss something that the jury was present for, I'm happy to have you tell me. But other than that, I do not want to know. I just only want to know what the jury is going to hear, and then I'm going to decide what I think. I have already formed some opinions, I can tell you. Granted, I do come at this with a little bit of a bias. I don't think I would ever get chosen for a jury. Knowing the fact that my family has had multiple murders and that I've been privy to all of that case, I don't think I ever would get chosen for a jury. I think that attorneys would look at me and go, we don't want somebody like this who knows all of everything that goes on behind the scenes. So I'm going to give you a very, very brief rundown before we dig into what happened in court on day one of the Brian Walshe trial in Massachusetts. Now, here's the reason I was kind of drawn to this case in the first place. It's a very odd coincidence that my former aunt-in-law lived in Cohassett for like 25 years, Cohassett, Massachusetts. It's a pretty small town. And just hearing that town name, I was like, I've been there. I've been to her house. I know the town. She lived pretty close to the main area of town. And so some of the areas that they talked about in court today, I was like, I know that area. I know that hardware store. So yes, so this is a trial in Massachusetts. It is the disappearance of a real estate professional who is a mom of 3. She was 39 years old, and her husband is charged with the redrum. So that's pretty much all I knew going into it, except that I knew he had some legal troubles in the past, but that got talked about in trial today, so it is fair game. So we start off with opening statements from the prosecution. And again, I don't know any. I usually research all the attorneys. I research the judge. I want to know what their records are, all of that stuff. This is brand new to me. John Smith, not so far, but again, I don't have any idea. So I hope not. I know they're on day 3 right now, but for me, this is day 1. Obviously, tomorrow I'm going to do day 2. And then Friday, I'll do day 3. And Saturday, I'll do day 4. So I'm going to get caught up. Okay. So opening statements from the prosecutor. We go to January 4th, 2023. The director of human resources at a global real estate company is concerned because she gets a phone call from the husband of a coworker, Ana Walshe. Ana Walshe is the missing woman, okay? Brian Walshe is the husband. He calls the real estate office where she works and says that she's missing. Now, Ana was hired by this HR professional. Her name is Teresa Marchese. And Ana was the building manager for many commercial buildings, and she lived in Cohassett. She has 3 kids, and she also has a townhouse in Washington, D.C. Her job is in Washington, D.C., but her family lives in Cohassett, Massachusetts. Now, the victim's name again, Ana Walshe. The accused name, Brian Walshe, her husband. Okay, I'm trying to watch chat questions as I go by so I don't have to go back and answer a bunch of stuff. Now, not only knowing the area, but also spending my middle school and high school years in Connecticut, having friends that lived in Massachusetts, and sort of knowing the cultural vibe in that area. And that's going to come up a little bit later. So Ana was hired in 2022 by Miss Marchese to, again, be a building manager for a commercial real estate firm. So Miss Marchese calls Brian Walshe, and he says that Ana left on January 1st for a work emergency. And from the 1st until the 4th, so for 3 days, he's had no communication from his wife, which is unusual. Then Miss Marchese goes to Ana Walshe's townhome in Washington, D.C. She calls Brian Walshe on the way. Brian gives her the garage code to get in to the condo. She observes nothing seems out of place. There are some boxes in the garage. There's no car, but the door from the garage to the house is locked. Then she calls, with Brian Walshe on the phone, she calls her head of security at the real estate firm. He happens to be a retired Secret Service agent. His name is Dan Levy, is his last name. So he listens to everything that's going on, listens to Brian Walshe's statement that he hasn't heard from his wife in 3 days. So he calls law enforcement in Cohassett around noon on the 4th of January, and this is the first time that Ana Walshe is being reported missing, not by her husband, but by the head of security from the company that she works for. So they give the address of the house. It's 516 Chief Justice Cushing Highway in Cohassett, Massachusetts. Ana Walshe is 39. She's married. She has 3 kids. She was an immigrant, and she came over originally to work in hotels and real estate. They said this was her dream job. And she eventually, the dream job is in Washington, D.C., and they live in Massachusetts. So she buys a townhome in Washington, D.C. The realtor that sells her that, his last name is Fasco. She thought her family would be coming with her to Washington, D.C., but her husband, Brian Walshe, was found guilty of fraud and owed over $400,000 in restitution in that case. So he couldn't leave Massachusetts to go to Washington, D.C. So he would stay home with the kids, their 3 children, their 3 boys, and she would commute back and forth. Logan Airport's not that far from Cohassett. It's not super convenient, but it's not that far. It's close enough that she could hop on a plane, fly to D.C., stay a few days, and fly back. So the realtor that sold Ana Walshe her condo in Washington, D.C., again, his last name is Fasco, and apparently from the time that she bought the condo, they became friends, then they became romantically involved, then there wasn't a full-blown affair that was in effect until about November of 2022. Then in Thanksgiving of 22, Thanksgiving of 22, Ana Walshe flew with the realtor, Fasco, to Dublin to visit her mother in Serbia, who wasn't well. So she missed Thanksgiving with her family. Then, Christmas Eve, they had dinner with another couple in Washington, D.C., her and her boyfriend, Fasco, and she wasn't able to get a flight home, so she had to drive on Christmas morning. So she missed her flight on Christmas Eve, so she missed Christmas Eve and most of Christmas Day with her family. She was driving home that day. John Smith, I heard that it was a Picasso, but again, I don't know. And again, please don't tell me because I want to hear what the jury is going to hear. So far, all the jury has heard is that he was guilty of fraud and that he owed $400,000 in restitution. Good to see you guys. Hey, Michelle. Hey, John Smith. Just call me Kim. Stephanie, good to see you. Tom Hartley. MB, good to see you. Who else? ET's here. Trace on the case. Thanks for being here. Just call me Kim. I can't remember who I said already. Peter Higgs. Sorry if I missed you. Miss Angry Seth. Good to see you guys here. Thanks to the members. Lisa Bite Me. Great to see you again. I don't know who else is here. So sorry. Tenaciously Tina. Just good to see so many familiar faces. Jesse and Eleanor, we had a little bit of a funny episode over on my other channel earlier tonight. So I should probably put the link to that so you guys can see it. It was pretty crazy. Anyway, so she missed Christmas Eve and most of Christmas Day with her children. Then a couple of days later, she had dinner with a friend. The friend noted that she was unusually tired, didn't seem herself. And then on the 30th, she went back to Cohassett and she was supposed to stay there until the 3rd of January. She attended a bar class, which is sort of like a ballet exercise class. And then on New Year's Eve, she had an old friend, her former boss, over to dinner with her family. And he reported that the couple was jovial. They had champagne. Brian cooked. He was attentive. But apparently he had lost his phone, but he said it felt really freeing to not be tied to his phone. And this friend left the house around 1:30 in the morning. Everything seemed fine. He hadn't heard anything about a work emergency at that point. This is 2022 to 2023. So Christmas of 22, New Year's of 23. Again, this is all from the opening statement from the prosecutor, and I'm going to have all of these clipped out in sections on my channel by tomorrow from days 1 and 2. As I'm watching, I'm going to be clipping these things out for you guys. So then we fast forward to the 4th of January. Officer Lorenz went to Brian Walshe's house. He interviewed him, and Brian said that his wife Anna took an Uber to Logan Airport to fly to Washington, D.C. Described her as being 5'2", 115 pounds, 39 years old. And then the prosecutor says that the last cell phone ping that came from Ana Walshe's phone was at 3 a.m. on January 2nd. He said she was last seen wearing blue hunter boots. Those are kind of like the rain boots that are super popular, a black jacket, and an Hermes watch, which will come into play just in a few minutes. He said that they were not able to locate her anywhere talking to family and friends, and that on the 6th of January, there was a search in the woods near their house. He noted that she did have a $1 million life insurance policy. Then the prosecutor goes back to Brian Walshe. On Christmas Day, Brian Walshe's phone searched the name Faskow. That's the man that Anna was having an affair with. Then on the 27th of December, he was doing searches about getting a divorce and related items. These were done on his MacBook. Then on the 29th, there were more searches about divorce proceedings. And then I'm a little fuzzy on this timeline because, yes, this is all opening statements. None of this is evidence yet. This is all allegations from the prosecution after the charges have been read. He's being charged with first-degree murder. Then these internet searches start coming up. 4:54 a.m. about body disposal, about someone missing. How long does it take until you can inherit? What happens when you throw away body parts? How long does DNA last? How do you get DNA off of a knife? Using my credit card while my wife is missing. How do you dispose of body parts after a murder? Searches about ammonia, bleach, hydrogen peroxide, special detergent to clean things. Searches about Lowe's security cameras, about dismemberment, about being charged with a crime without a body and identifying a body when there are broken teeth. Then the prosecutor talks about cell phone pings from Brian Walshe, not on Brian Walshe's phone, but on one of the kids' phones. So these searches, Tom Hartley, that I was mentioning just now, were done on Brian Walshe's MacBook, okay? What I'm going to mention now are cell phone pings from one of their children's phone. Apparently one of their children had an iPhone SE. At this point, I'm kind of asking myself, okay, how old are these kids? January 1st, cell phone pings on the kid's phone. A Walgreens, where we have security footage of a man with dark hair buying Band-Aids and antibiotics. Another cell phone ping at CVS, where there's camera footage of the same described man buying hydrogen peroxide. Another cell phone ping and camera footage at a Stop and Shop where someone was buying ammonia with cash. Another cell phone ping at a Lowe's where someone in a mask pays $400 in cash to buy things like tin snips, cutting shears, hacksaws, and a Tyvek suit. Then on January 2nd, receipts from a Home Goods buying scented candles, receipts from Home Depot buying cleaning supplies such as baking powder, mops, buckets, and other cleaning supplies. Then January 5th, the cell phone pings at a dumpster near Brian Walshe's mother's home. And on the 9th, a search is made of that dumpster where they find a coded vaccine card in the name of Ana Walshe. They find the clothing that Ana Walshe was last wearing, those hunter boots, the jacket, and the cutting items like the snips, the shears, and the saw located in that dumpster. All of the items, that Tyvek suit and the saw specifically, was a DNA match with Brian Walshe and Ana Walshe on the Tyvek suit. And furthermore, Ana Walshe did not access any of her electronics or finances, and there were no phone calls from her after the 1st of January. Okay. That was the prosecution. Then the defense got up. The defense attorney paced around a lot, and he was very dramatic in his speech. And he admitted that his client lied to police. He admitted that those searches took place on his phone and his laptop, and that they got much darker than what we've already heard. What? Darker than how do you identify a body with broken teeth? Darker than that? All right. Then he says that at that dinner on New Year's Eve, that the friend said that the celebration continued until about 1:30 in the morning, and then the friend left. He says after that happened, Brian Walshe got up to clean the kitchen, and he was there for about an hour, and then he returned to the main bedroom, and he just sensed that something was off. And so he nudged his wife, who was in bed, and she didn't respond. So he nudged her harder, and she didn't respond. So then he got quite agitated, and he pushed her hard enough that she rolled out of bed. Where have we heard this one before, you guys? All I'm saying is that it sounds fishy to me. The attorney says that his client was distraught because it seemed that there was a sudden and unexplained death. He says this happens all the time to people of many different ages, many different health profiles, which again, all sounds very familiar. Are we going to victim blame here again and say that this victim was unwell in her final days? I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Then the attorney says that there was a lot of stress because of this 2014 federal case. He brings this up again. And he says that they did speak about divorce on Christmas Day and that his client did lie about that to police. But he also says Ana Walshe did not tell her friends about the affair. None of the family members knew about it. But she did tell her husband that she had a crush on this Fasco guy. And Brian Walshe did not react in a jealous way after 10 years of them telling each other, I find so-and-so attractive, I find so-and-so attractive. Now, in a real world sense, if you do really have these conversations with your partner, I think that's kind of a healthy thing because, as I've said many times before, that there are many times when, we're going to find someone attractive, and that's not unreasonable. I say these things to Samuel all the time. He says them to me all the time. Oh, so-and-so, man, they were looking great tonight. Super attractive. In a healthy relationship, that can be an okay thing. Remains to be seen. Again, I'm an impartial juror. Remember, I'm just taking in information at this point. Then the attorney talks about the townhome in Washington, D.C. This was a $1.3 million townhome, which honestly is not that expensive for the Washington, D.C. area, from what I understand. Then he points out that they had whole life insurance on both of their sons, or all of their sons, for $1 million each. Now, this is fishy to me, very fishy, because as someone who used to sell life insurance, first of all, whole life insurance is extremely expensive. And it's not really the best financial move that you can make. But if you have a whole life policy, especially if it's that high, you can borrow against it. But who takes out $1 million life insurance on their child? There's a reason why most children's life insurance is around $10,000, maybe $20,000, because usually it's just in the event that something tragic happens, you want to be able to cover the funeral expenses and perhaps travel expenses for family to come in and things like that. $1 million on a kid? I've never heard of that before. Not that I'm like a super, super experienced life insurance professional, but I was in there for a couple of years. That was red flag to me. Super weird. Then the attorney says that Brian Walshe's mom had gifted them some money and that she was paying rent. And so, yes, again, on a whole life insurance policy, you can borrow against it because it is considered an asset. And so the attorney is trying to allege that they were not having any financial problems at all, which the prosecuting attorney alleged that $400,000 of restitution was a burden for this family. They were very stressed about the money. Defense attorney says it was no problem. They had $1 million of life insurance on their 3 children, each. $3 million. That's crazy. And that mom, was gifting them money, paying rent, because that's what you do as a grandmother. You help out that way. They owned investment properties in Massachusetts. And so apparently he's alleging that there were no financial problems. Then he said that Ana Walshe spoke glowingly of her husband, Brian, that they had an open and honest relationship, that she referred to him as her best friend. Then he's going to talk about the texts between the two of them. On Christmas Day, there were 7 texts going back and forth about property listings in the DC area. Apparently, they were thinking about buying some more investment property. Then on the 27th, there were texts about one of their properties being sold and what they were going to do with the proceeds of that property. Then on the 28th, there were some texts about Ana not feeling well. And Brian joked, "I guess I'll buy you a plunger." And she says, "Forget about the plunger, but you can buy me that Porsche." And then searches on Brian Walshe's MacBook for Porsches that he was apparently going to buy his wife. Then on the 29th, there were texts about a 3-story brownstone and what renovations might need to be done to it if they were going to invest in that property. Then on the 30th, there were texts about a flight to Cohassett, Massachusetts for New Year's Eve. Then there were some texts where they exchanged affectionate "I love yous" back and forth. Then on the 31st, this attorney talked about the friend visiting them for dinner and saying that he was thrilled to be spending time with his good friends, and related a story about how Brian had bought a ring for Ana and how she was surprised about it. They spent 4 to 5 hours together. He reported that there was nothing amiss, and that Ana had written on the box of champagne, courage, love, passion, perseverance, and finally, joy. He said, yes, they did have a conversation about a divorce, but it was more about preserving the family assets than it was about any kind of jealousy or stress about an affair. And after the death, he refers to as Ana just passing away in the middle of the night because she wasn't feeling well the day before. Again, that's going to just ring with me. I'm sorry, but it is. And the attorney says that all Brian could think about was not losing his 3 boys. He was terrified that if the wife passed away with him, being convicted of this crime and the sentencing hasn't taken place yet, that he was going to lose his 3 boys. And so he did tell lies. He did tell a story. and he did try to hide. I don't know, guys. That just doesn't hold a lot of weight for me. I don't know. So the first witness for the prosecution was a man named Harrison Schmidt. He was with the Cohassett Police Department as a sergeant. He's been in that position, or he's been with the police department for the last 10 years as a firearms and taser instructor. And he responded to a call to assist with an investigation on the 4th of January and went about 4 p.m. to the station, and then went with his colleagues to the home of Brian Walshe, where he arrived about 6:30. And he noted that this home is located on a 2-lane road with a double yellow line. So highway in the New England area, not too, it's not too weird or uncommon for it to just be a 2-lane road with 2 double yellow going down the middle. And he says that like right next to the road, there was an auto repair shop. Behind that, there was some woods, a wooded area, and the house was down a long driveway behind that wooded area. So I'm going to show you from the trial today the pictures that we got to see as this detective was on the stand, so that you can see the same thing that everybody saw in the courtroom, all of these pictures. And I've got the timestamps, so thanks as always for being patient with me. Now, guys, I just have to say again, this really takes me back. Having spent so much time in the New England area, this is really similar to a lot of homes that you see in the New England area, and it looks a lot like the house that I spent a lot of time in. It's gray wood with, white trim, white doors, just very colonial, very New England, very typical of New England. So this is the exterior of their house. And then I'm actually going to just mute it and play it on fast forward so that you can see all of these pictures that come in as evidence, because that will probably be quicker than me going to each one of the timestamps. So this is the home. This is the sort of addition onto the home. This is the island in their kitchen where they had bar stools. When the officer arrived, the kids were sitting at the island eating some McDonald's, he said. And then the next picture is of the dining room. And he says that Brian Walshe was sitting here at this chair. He was sitting over on this side where the jacket's on the chair, and the other officer was sitting on this bench over here. And then this is the dining room hutch. Actually, I'll show you a little zoom out of that picture right here. Also in the dining room. And then this is a close-up of that same dining room. And then this is oops, clicked away a little too fast. This is the sort of, I don't know, great room area with a dog in a cage over here. Said that they didn't have any problems with that dog at all as they were visiting. And then they went ahead and played the recording of this officer interviewing Brian Walshe. On this initial visit. So I will say, John Smith, there's a feature now on StreamYard where I can stream in horizontal mode or vertical mode. So I think there are 2 different streams on my channel, and you can choose which one that you want to watch. It's something I'm testing out. I don't even know if it is something that is good that people want or like, but it was an option and I thought I would try it. So if you don't like the cell phone mode, you can go to my channel and find the horizontal mode. I don't know. I'd love to have you guys' feedback about this because I don't even know if it's a thing that people like or want. It was available. I thought I would try it. So let me know what you guys think. Okay. So during this recording of this call, and there was a big break in the middle of it, it was about 52-ish minutes long. It was a long recording. And I have to admit that I got bored. Frankly, I did. The notes that I made here are that Anna used a couple of different apps to communicate with different people. She used Viber to communicate with her sister. She also used WhatsApp from time to time. And I just noted that he seemed pretty casual. The kids were playing, so clearly the kids were completely unconcerned. They were unaware that their mom was missing or that there was anything wrong going on because they were fascinated that there were police officers in their home and they were trying to interact with the officers, draw pictures for them, show them things. So thanks for this, Des 1530. In the cell phone mode, your live will show up more when people are scrolling through shorts. Cool. If that's a real thing, love that. So from what I understand from opening statements, Marcy, one of the kids' cell phones was used to do some of these searches. And one of the kids' cell phones was with Brian when he was visiting all of these different locations buying things. That's what the opening statement said, but so far it's not evidence. The judge was very careful to say opening statements are not evidence, they're just statements, and then they have to prove the evidence, of course. So we'll see. We'll see what comes out. But generally speaking, it would be, pretty terrible to someone's career if they decided to say things in their opening statements that they couldn't prove with evidence. So we'll see. All right. I also noted, okay, so being in the Connecticut area for middle school and high school, I can tell you people in New England, as a general rule, not all of them, but a lot of people in New England come from old money, they're upper middle class, and they care a great deal about money, about inherited money, about homes, about cars, and about brands. And they also care a great deal about name dropping. And it seemed to me that Brian was doing some of this name dropping. He talked about their social calendar and the friends that they spend time with and a lot of that kind of thing. He just seemed very casual, dare I say nonchalant, as the police were interviewing him. He did not at all seem agitated. He did not at all seem overly concerned that he hadn't heard from his wife in 3 days. And of course, he mentioned that a couple of times, but there was no stress in his voice that I could hear. And again, we're not seeing his face or his body language, so we don't know if he's nervous or sweating or any of that kind of stuff. But his voice certainly did not sound agitated or stressed to me as he was being interviewed. So there's just something to note for future reference, possibly. And that's why I said, I kind of got bored because he was sort of telling this story in a casual way as if it was not that big of a deal. Welcome to you, Manji Swanson, 5587. Good to have you. Glad you found me. If you are new to the channel, welcome. Please take a second to subscribe. It's free and it helps support the channel. And I really like doing these recaps and being analytical about what goes on in court. So I hope that you guys find it helpful. MB, I agree. He does not sound distressed at all. So several times during this 50-minute interview, the kids interrupt. And I just have to say, almost at the end of it, one of the kids comes in and tells on another kid for saying the F word. And he's like, oh, well, just, tell him not to say that. And I'm like, what? I didn't find this out until later. To just a few minutes later that they said the kids were 2, 4, and 6. So if my 6-year-old comes and tells me that my 4-year-old just said the F word, I would have been a lot more upset than that, especially if there were police officers there. Anyway, I don't know. One of the kids mentions mommy's glasses, and these are a pair of Tiffany sunglasses that one of the kids comes in and is playing with these glasses. Then they talk a little bit about the screenshots with the JetBlue information. Apparently, Anna had a JetBlue credit card, and she used that to fly back and forth from Washington, D.C. Then the officer did a walkthrough, and we get to see some more pictures. So again, I will share with you what they showed in court. Again, this was a long time later. I got super bored listening to that. As a juror, I even stopped taking notes because I was like, ugh, I don't want to listen to this guy talk anymore. It was like a couple of bros sitting down for a beer talking about their weekend. And I was like, is somebody missing or not at this point? Okay, so this is a picture of the entryway into the dining room. It's hard to see, but right here are those bar stools where the kids were sitting, and over here is the hutch. And then, let's see, what minute mark am I at? I'm at 45. Okay, so then this is the first floor bathroom, and there's also a washer and dryer in that bathroom. And then this is the door to the, I can't read my writing. Where am I? 45. Okay, I skipped ahead a little bit. Okay, first floor bathroom, and then 45, 55. Okay, so there's the washer and dryer, super interesting. And then there is a sunken family room with some stairs, and this is the door to that family room. And then it's really hard to, when a video is this long, it's hard to find an exact minute mark. So this is 46. I'm looking for 46. Okay, so here is the family room. And again, I'm just going to play a little bit of this. There are the stairs leading up to the upstairs area. So again, this little family room area, the dog cage is like over here somewhere. And these are the stairs that go up. Okay, so if we keep going, here are the stairs. Very interesting leopard print carpet. And then this is the single bedroom in this loft area, and there's no access to the rest of this house from this loft area other than up this staircase. It's not connected to anything else in the house. And then there's apparently a closet. 47. So that's another picture of that same. Okay, this is, sorry. It's like going and I'm messing it up, guys. I apologize. Okay. So this is the closet door, my fault. And then in just a second, we're going to see inside the closet. There we go, just some utility shelves. And then the next thing we see is this hallway, the entryway, and then the hallway that goes again to the island area and the dining area. And then the next thing that we see is the front living room right here with the stairs going up to the right. This is a second set of stairs. It's different than the stairs in the other part of the house. And this is the front door right here. Then we see a close-up of the living room right here. Again, in the front part of the house. And then these doors go to the backyard back here. And then again, here's the kitchen on this side. Then there's also a small office around the corner over here. And that's a picture of the small office. Then we see the second floor bathroom. And they described to us that as you go upstairs, there's a hallway, and the main bedroom and bathroom are on the right, and there are 2 bedrooms on the left, and this bathroom is straight at the end of the hall on the upstairs portion. This next picture is the first bedroom on the left, and the defendant indicated that, well, the prosecution indicated that the defendant was staying in that bedroom, the first bedroom on the left. And they noticed that there was a drawer here that's sticking out, and inside this drawer is a section of drywall, which we'll find out later came from the ceiling. The next picture that we see is the main bedroom. Don't know why it's taking so long to get there. There we go. There's the main bedroom. Wait, is that the main bedroom? Yeah. This is the main bedroom, sorry, with the closet over here, and you can see a hole in the ceiling up here. And that's where the drywall came from, apparently. And then there's a close-up of that hole that leads up to the attic, which is unfinished. And then this is the second bedroom on the upstairs, the second on the left where their middle child stayed. That's a close-up of the second bedroom. And then I'm not sure why they did this in this order, but the next picture is the bathroom. Sorry, the main bedroom. And then the main bathroom. Then the next picture we see is the door to the basement, which has a child lock here on the top of it, so no children can get down there. Then we see, I think, the downstairs bathroom again. Oh no, sorry, we see the stairs next. The basement stairs. Right there. And then the next thing that we see are 2 pictures of the basement here. And then there's one more here. And then the next thing we see is the steps going upstairs. Now, not to be confused, there are steps going down into the basement, and then there are steps coming out of the basement to the exterior. And sorry, guys, I'm not watching chat right now because I'm showing these pictures and I can't do both. Then this is the outside of the house. Sorry. I keep looking at the wrong time. Okay, this is the outside of the house. This is what you would see when you exit the basement. There's a chain link fence, and behind that is the backyard where there's a in-ground swimming pool. There's a picture of that pool right here. You can see it's partially been drained. And the officer said that when they first saw it, the water was green and cloudy. There was no cover on it. And then when they came back, the pool was partially drained. And you can see a shed over here to the left. And this is the main house, and then like the little addition to the house. So this is the back of the house. And then that's the addition to the house on this side. And then we see a picture of the shed over here, which again, the pool is right this way, and the house would be behind us here, facing away from the house. And then inside the shed. Now, the prosecutor asked if they found anything when they were searching these areas at the time, and the officer said no, that they did not find anything. Hey, Mima Vet 8, how are you doing? Yeah, he did drone on. I felt sorry for the kids. They were running kind of crazy. Yes, Brian was in a separate bedroom. I did notice that. I don't know why there's a hole in the ceiling yet. Apparently that's a subject of discussion, but again, trying to be impartial, so I'm not digging into it until it comes into evidence. Yeah, that's a great question, Stephanie. Who is draining a pool when your wife is missing? Interesting. All right. Then they also said that they looked at the Volvo that was in the driveway. And here's a picture of that. Oops. It's so hard to get specific with these longer videos. There we go. There's the Volvo. They said in the back of the Volvo, they noted that the trunk was lined with a plastic covering. That's super normal. Everybody has plastic coverings in their trunk. He said there was also a maple seed. And if you guys haven't seen these, it's like a V-shaped seed pod that kind of catches the wind and spins as it comes down. Then the officer went on to detail, the sergeant, I should say, what they did next in the investigation. They went back and they, hey, Moonlight View, great to see you. They went back and flagged Anna's passport in case she was trying to leave the country. Oh, thanks for becoming a member, Moonlight View. Appreciate that. Lots of fun members-only content out there. They said then he ordered a walkthrough of the DC townhome. He called Anna's sister. He called in the fire department to do a pool scrape, which they did, and they found a pool skimmer, which they then used to drag the bottom of the pool, and they did not find anything. Then the next day, which was the 5th of January, the sergeant talked with friends and family, created a missing persons poster, and I will show that here as well. If I can get to it. Thanks for your patience, you guys. Always super kind and respectful here, and I really appreciate that so much. So this is the missing persons. Oh, man, that was fast. I wanted to hang out with that for a second so we could really get a sense of who Anna is. And they took it down. They took it down super quickly. There it is. So there's Ana Walshe. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. She was born in Serbia. Brown hair, brown eyes, white female, olive skin, no noticeable scars or marks, 5'2", about 115 pounds, and she is 39 years old, mother of 3. I'm just going to leave that there for a minute. The sergeant said that then they ordered a search of the wooded area with a canine, which did not indicate anything. They checked Amtrak travel because Amtrak is it's a common commuter train that people use in that area to go back and forth. Then he ordered people to go to Logan Airport and check outbound flights. And they also checked cabs, Lyft, and Uber to see if they had any hits of anybody using those services that matched her description, and they did not. And so then he ordered for more resources to come in. Excuse me. Then we go in for the second visit. He goes back to the house to do a second interview. And throughout this recording, we can hear that in the background, there's more talking going on. And they're interviewing at this time the nanny at the same time that they're interviewing Brian Walshe for the second time. what I noted about this second phone call is that they mentioned the glasses being found, and Brian Walshe was, very name droppy with brands. He talked about her Tiffany sunglasses, her Coach bags, her Prada bags, different watches that she had and things like that. Then they said at one point their older kid, he asked if they could find the older kid's cell phone. And he said, no, it's missing. I'm not sure where it is. And at one point he threw it in the garbage and we had to dig through the garbage and find it. Interesting. Kids don't normally throw cell phones in the garbage, although he was only 6 years old. So first of all, why does a 6-year-old have a cell phone? I mean, I get it if you're, I don't know, parents are getting a divorce and they're going to be at different parents' house and they want to communicate with the other parent. But that seems weird to me. I'm going to try to wrap this up here, guys. I don't have a whole lot more notes because this recording was the last thing that the jury heard today. And again, I cut off my feed and did not listen to anything that happened after the jury left the room. So again, if stuff happened and there were motions or whatever, I'm not looking at any of the motions in limine. I'm not looking at any of the motions to suppress evidence, none of that stuff. I'm just looking at it from the jury's perspective. So if there's more stuff that you guys know and you want to discuss, that's totally fine. I'm trying to remain impartial. So I'm just going to try to go off of that. Okay. Then they started talking about her job and how stressful it was. Brian says it was kind of over her head a little bit, that she had been experiencing a little bit of depression, but no thoughts of self-harm, in other words. Brian said that she was unhappy about the trial taking such a long time, but that was mainly about the two of them not being able to be together. But again, I did note he was sleeping in a separate bedroom, so what's that about if they're worried about being together? So I do have a trial chat over on my Patreon, and it's free. I do have a paid membership on my Patreon that has bonus content, but I have 3 free chats on my Patreon. One is my regular chat. One is for trials, which would be here. And the other one is my self-care chat. So I pledge I will not get on the trial chat at all during this trial. So you guys can talk about all the stuff that is happening behind the scenes and after the jurors leave the room, and I will not see any of it. I'm not going to look at it at all, unless somebody notifies me there's something that I need to take care of in the chat, which there usually isn't. You guys can always send me direct messages on Patreon as well. So you guys can feel free to talk about all the juicy tidbits on the trial chat in my Patreon, which again is free. And I will not look at it, I promise. I won't have anything to do with it. And then I have a self-care chat as well, where we just support each other doing good things for ourselves. And then I have a paid chat that's just a little bit more private. So do with that what you will. Engage how you want to. I just want you guys to have a safe place to discuss everything you want to discuss and not worry that it's going to bother me at all. So if stuff comes out in the trial that you want to talk about, but I'm not supposed to see, then there you go. There's your space for it. Okay. Brian did mention that Anna was going to see, or she had plans to go see a psychiatrist for the first time. Then he lied about not talking about a divorce. The officer said, "Have you guys talked about divorce? Was there anything like that?" And Brian said no, which we know is a lie. Well, we think it's a lie because the prosecution mentioned it in their opening statement, but there's no evidence yet because we haven't seen the text messages, but we will. We'll find out. Then there was a break. They come back in. And it really just seemed to me, well, Brian, when they first came back, the first thing we heard after the break was Brian asking if he should get an attorney. So there's that. But this conversation really seemed to me to just be like two bros talking casually. There was no elevation in his voice, no stress in his voice. Again, 4 days since he has supposedly seen his wife or heard from her, and he doesn't seem to be stressed or upset. Meanwhile, I'm thinking, if my significant other has gone missing and I've tried all the things I could try to find them and nobody knows where they are, I'm going to be upset. I'm going to be agitated. I'm going to be begging them, please help me. What can I do? Then they started talking about finances. They talked a lot about credit card charges. They talked about, the money of the lawsuit that he's involved in, where he owes restitution. He does some bragging about the travel that they do. Again, I'm picking up on these things because as a middle school or high school in Connecticut, people were always bragging about where they traveled to. That was always like a status symbol of like, where do you spend your summers and where do you spend your spring break and where do you ski? Where do you spend your winter break? And it just seemed odd to me that he's bragging about these travel places to this officer who clearly is not at the same income level while his wife is missing. That doesn't make sense to me. I don't get it. Then he says that Anna had her cell phone on a separate plan from his, and so he couldn't really just turn over the records to her. And he said that she had a previous marriage, and the officer asked if she ever spoke with her former spouse. And he said, no, I keep asking if she wants to, which I was like, what? Why would you keep asking your wife if she wants to get in touch with her ex? They didn't have kids together. So Brian says that they were kind of friendly, all of the three of them, I guess, until they started to have kids, Brian and Anna. And then they stopped kind of communicating with this guy. So why in the world would he keep asking her if she wants to reach out? That's weird. Then the officer asked, does she usually keep cash on her? Brian says she has had as much as $10,000 in cash on her at a given time. He said that's not normal, but it has happened before. Sometimes she would have $2,000 to $5,000 on her. What? That's crazy. And then as these questions are being asked about cash, Brian is giving way too much information, which I actually labeled this second phone call or the second recording. I labeled it because in the first recording, he was answering questions. It seemed pretty normal. In the second recording, it was like, well, I just don't really know exactly how much money she had on her all the time. So it was like a very noticeable difference between the first visit and the second visit. It's like the pressure's on, they're back again, they're asking more questions. So yes, a lot of bragging, Eleanor Nelson. Care Bear, are you from Massachusetts? Most of us from Massachusetts are obnoxious, Stephanie, just not in the same way. And I have to say, my former aunt who lived in Massachusetts was married to somebody who had a summer home in Maine, and they would go to Maine, and they commented about the fact that the people from Maine called them massholes. So I'm picking up on the Massachusetts vibe. Same country. We still haven't recovered from Karen. Yeah, I know. I'm so sorry. It sounded like that was so traumatic and horrible. I could not dig into that trial because I was busy with my own family stuff. So I just have a lot of compassion for you guys, having already gone through some difficult times. I have some really dear friends that are from Massachusetts, and I love New England. So I will just say, again, a weird connection to Cohassett. It's familiar territory for me. Brian said to the officer that they didn't have any arguments over the holidays. He said the only time they ever argued was in 2022 when she had to go to Delaware for 2 weeks and she missed a vacation. That was a big deal. And then he said in December, there were some 24-hour gaps that were making him anxious and upset. And she told him to relax, and then he did. He literally just said, she told me to relax, and so I did. What? This does not make sense to me at all. I'm still trying to figure this guy out. Then, okay, I do have to play this for you really quickly because the officer asked him, "What do you normally talk about when you guys get on the phone together?" And he said, "We just have normal conversations." And then he tries to imitate a conversation between the two of them, and I found it to be very weird. And I wrote LOL because it was weird. Where are we? All the way. We're almost done, believe it or not. Oh, I forgot that I muted it, and I forgot that I'm on 2x speed. Sorry, guys. There we go.
Same tastes, and ultimately we defer to each other with what the other person's good at. But the biggest argument we had in 2022 was when she had to go to Belgrade for 2 weeks, and that was a 2 weeks of vacation. I was like, I don't know if you can use you here boys for 2 weeks. So I have to go to Belgrade. So yeah, that was our biggest argument, and I couldn't get in touch with her. My mother wanted me. I couldn't get in touch with her for the first few days in Belgrade because the phone didn't have international. So I was upset about that. So that was the only other time.
I noted at this point that he was squirming and his attorney looked really uncomfortable. So, yeah. Interesting.
This year that didn't have, contact with her daily.
So you normally have daily contact with them?
Yeah, more than once.
What's the longest you go no contact?
The 3 days in Belgrade, and there was the last week of December, there's some points of December where there was like 24-hour gaps, which was really not normal. And then when she was supposed to be here, she wasn't. And I was like, I'm going to file a support person before you're missing. Where are you? But like 24 hours, 36 hours would be a lot of time. But I was making a big deal out of it over the last couple of months, and she never told me to relax about it. And then I did. So I feel pretty good.
When you guys did communicate, what was the conversation like?
What?
Just any time, like during the last couple months when she's been traveling.
Oh yeah.
Work.
It's been like she always says, "Hey, hello," and this is what I'm doing today. I said, "Oh, the boys are up." Sometimes I would send photos of kids. She would send me photos of what she's doing. We have a recap. She says, "Now we're going to get something to eat," and this is the recap of it. Normal as if we were together. Yeah, as if we were together without being in person. But there were some nights about it, and then I did. So I feel.
There we go. Okay. So sorry. Technical difficulty. So hang on 1 second. Okay, I think I fixed it. Yeah, so that was where the point where Brian Walshe said that his wife Eleanor told him just to not worry about it. And then he did. I'm going to rewind this because this was so bizarre to me.
Always says, hey, hello, and this is what I'm doing today. I said, oh, before you go out, sometimes I would send photos of the kids. She would send me photos of what she's doing. We have a recap shoot. And anyway, at night, I know I'm tired. The kids are running crazy. There's no food because I do all the cooking normally. So now we're going to coffee to get something to eat. And, it's just a recap of it. Normal as if we were together. Yeah, as if we were together without being in person.
I guess I didn't rewind far enough.
There was some.
But he just, again, as I think it was MB who was saying, like, he just talks and talks and talks and talks and talks. Okay, so this is where he talks about the 24-hour gaps.
Really, not normal. And then when she was supposed to be here, she wasn't. And I was like, I'm going to follow this person before you're missing. Where are you? But like 24 hours, 36 hours would be a lot of time. But I was making a big deal out of it over the last couple of months, and everyone told me to relax about it, and then I did. So
he said I was making a big deal out of it, and then everyone told me to relax about it, and I did. Okay, bizarre. I'm so sorry, bizarre. Then the officer goes on and says, look, this is really hard for us because you're basically telling us that there's nothing wrong in your relationship. There's nothing psychologically wrong with her. It's not the normal reasons why somebody would go missing. And so then he asks, have you ever been abused, injured, or assaulted? And he says, no. I love my wife. This family doesn't work without her. Or no, sorry. I guess law enforcement asked if he had ever abused, injured, or assaulted her. And he said, no, I love my wife. This family doesn't work without her. He says, no, you haven't had any physical fights. And he says, no. And he says, no affairs or anything like that. He says, no. He says, we have been separated in the past, but, nothing. And he said, I was overwhelmed by taking care of the 3 kids, so I can't imagine doing it without her. The officer says, your wife is missing. If you could go anywhere, if you could look anywhere at all right now, you could look anywhere, where would you go? And he says, well, it takes him a really long time to answer. And then he starts talking about hotels, hospitals, our favorite restaurant. Really? Your wife has been missing for 4 days and you would check your favorite restaurant? That's weird. Sorry. Then he says, finally, the house in DC. Then they mentioned the thing about the friend, Jen, saying that she wasn't feeling well, saying that she had been different, but he's cooperating with authorities. Then they mention downloading his phone. He says, we can't get your wife's phone, the records, it takes too long. It would be much easier if we could use your phone to see the messages between you two. We're trying to get to know who this woman is. The easiest way to do that is to download the phone. Then he's like, okay, that seems fine. But like by download the phone, do you mean like everything? And the officer's like, yeah, I mean, we're mainly just going to focus on the text messages and the emails between you. And then he starts backpedaling faster than I've seen anyone do in a really long time. And he says, well, I want to cooperate with you guys. I do. Don't get me wrong. I just really want to cooperate. But I know that, I have my attorney. Wow, everything. That's a lot. So, I have this attorney in the other case, and I really feel like I need to talk to her. And, just I think he said I 7 times during this exchange. And I was like, that's not suspicious at all. Just saying like, I just really, I need to be able to talk to my attorney, which I get it. Sure. During this exchange, his attorney and he exchanged some nervous glances. He seems a little agitated.
Personal information, gentlemen.
It's a big ask, but there's a lot on the line.
No, there is a lot.
You know what I mean?
Asking for his whole phone, downloading everything. He's like,
I don't know.
Are there other legal issues?
That's one of them. I guess my request would be, I'm willing to do anything, but My only request would be like, because Tracy might have called me today about what's going on, and
Who is that?
Tracy might was representing me.
Okay.
So she said, before you do anything, you have to talk to me. I want to do everything I can to support this 100%, but I gotta call her about it.
Did you guys hear that? But I got to call her. So he's concerned that his attorney is going to need to get in touch with him, and that's the reason. He said, I want to help you, I do, but I need to be able to talk to my attorney. And the guy's like, what's your concern? And he's like, are there legal issues? And he says, just, I need to be able to talk to my wife. Okay, I get it, but why are you being so squirmy about turning over your cell phone? Then he asks how long it takes to download it. The guy says 30 minutes to 2 hours. He says, it's my intention to hand over my phone. I just have to talk to my attorney. And then the officer wants to clarify. I want you to know this is not a criminal investigation at this point. This is a missing persons case. We're just trying to find your wife. He's like, I do a lot of work on my phone. And the officer says, well, we're only interested in finding Anna. And he says, well, I just want to listen to all the advice that's coming my way, and there's a lot of it. All right. Then the officer asks if there was any jewelry that would have been identifying jewelry. He says, yes, there was a ring and a wedding band. There was a wallet. There was a necklace that she got in Serbia. There was a Prada bag, again, dropping the names and the brands. There was a Rolex watch. And he says, there was an Hermes watch. And the officer says, a what? And he goes, Hermes, a Hermes watch. You guys. I found that to be very cringy. Anyway, officer asks what she was wearing. And this is another interesting thing. Both the first time and the second time that they've interviewed Brian Walshe, he wasn't able to really accurately describe what she was wearing. The first time he said he wasn't really sure at all, but he knew that she was wearing a short black coat. The second time, finally, he was able to come up with the fact that she was wearing some blue Hunter boots. Again, has to say the name brand, the black coat, and the Hermes watch. Hey, Diamond Dave, good to see you. How are you? Then they asked about, did she have her toiletries and clothing with her? And he said, yes, there was enough clothing to last her a couple of days in DC. So it wouldn't have been that weird for her to be gone for a couple of days. And then the oldest son, who we hear his name, I'm not going to repeat it, but he comes up with a drawing for the officer. And then Brian has to describe what the drawing is. He's like, there's a heart and then whatever. Then in a stunning development, Dad says that the morning Mom went missing, which was January 1st, he claims there was this big work emergency, that the oldest son saw Mom before she left and described to Dad that he saw Mom get into a taxi. If it comes out that this dude is throwing his own son under the bus, I'm going to be supremely angry. But again, I'm just like a juror. I don't know anything else over here. So when the officer presses Brian Walshe about this, he says, well, the driveway is very long and the car would have been all the way at the end of the driveway. So he would not necessarily have seen the car. I'm sorry, you guys. It's not a ghost. It's not a portal. It's just my dog. Get out of there, weirdo. Okay, he's lying down. All right. So Dad saying that oldest son reported that he saw Mom get into a taxi. But then Dad's like, you know what, though? The driveway's really long. I don't think he actually saw the car, so wouldn't have been able to give a description. I don't like it when these people involve their children, even if he's innocent. I don't like it. So kind of the last salient piece of information we got from this call is that Anna does have a Serbian passport, and they were asking if the kids could please come in to be interviewed. So here's where you FAFO, because if you involve your children are going to get interviewed by the police. And they have specialists to do that, where they can tell whether your kid is being honest or not being honest, whether they've been coached or not been coached. And it just makes me angry if it turns out that this guy has tried to use his kid as some kind of an alibi. I'm going to be upset. I'm not going to like it at all. But that was kind of the last thing, is that the officer describing to Brian Walshe that he could bring all three of his children, 6, 4, and 2, all three boys. Again, just hearkening back to the fact that they have whole life insurance on these kids for $1 million each. That makes me sick to my stomach. I don't like that at all. But the end of that not phone call, but the end of the recorded interview is the officer describing to Brian that he needs to bring his kids down and have them interviewed by a specialist so they can find out if the kids saw or heard anything in the hours before the disappearance. So once again, Brian Walshe trial happening in Massachusetts. This is the day 1 recap. I fully realized that today in court was actually day 3. I'm 2 days behind. I'm going to catch up. Don't worry. But again, I'm coming at this from a different angle. I am not doing the deep dives and the research on all the rabbit holes and all of the preliminary things that have taken place prior to the trial. I knew nothing about this going into it. And so far, I'm only, not so far, the whole time, I plan to only listen to the parts of the trial that are there for the jury. And so I'm going to do my very best to remain impartial, even given my background where I'm super suspicious of people. And I think all of this is already really shady, but I'm maintaining neutrality as much as I possibly can, because I want to just hear the evidence. And then once the jury goes out to deliberate, I would like to have you guys come on and give me your opinion. What do you think based on the evidence? Now, again, if you want to talk about all the behind the scenes stuff, I have a free chat on my Patreon. It's called Megan Connor's Trial Chat. If you go to my Patreon, sign up as a free member, you can chat with all of the other beautiful humans over there about the case. And I promise I will not look at the chat until the very, very end. But I don't know, MB, I'm with you. This story sounds really familiar to me. Wife goes missing. Husband claims that she was not well. Husband's attorney, in his opening statement, said that husband got up to do the dishes, was gone for an hour, came back to bed, felt like something wasn't right, nudged his wife, she didn't respond, nudged her again, didn't respond, and then pushed her hard enough that she rolled out of bed. And then what happened next could not have been good. If what the prosecution laid out in their testimony is true, what person in their right mind would have a sudden death in the middle of the night and then do what he did? So I'm sure that there is a ton of backstory stuff. I can't wait to have somebody on the show at the end of the trial to fill me in on all of that so I can hear about it real time. I definitely am excited to unpack this with you guys. Thanks for being here with me. As always, I hope that justice is served. And I am concerned, very concerned about these 3 little boys. And I'm looking forward to finding out the truth. So I hope you will join me on this journey. We will seek the truth together. And there will be more cases and more information coming up on my channel for other things that I'm digging into. I hope you'll be here for it. Thanks for being with me, beautiful humans. Take really good care of yourself. Have a great night.